We can all picture in our minds a titan of industry. Such men were the leaders who built the modern world we know. However, there were titans, and then there was Andrew Carnegie. This Scottish immigrant rose from poverty to become one of the richest men in America. You might think such a man would have ended his life with a tight fist. In reality, Carnegie became one of the greatest philanthropists in history, and his name to this day means hard work, mastery, and a purpose of great magnitude. Born in 1835 in Dunfermline, Scotland, to a weaving family, Andrew Carnegie experienced deprivation early on. His father lost his traditional trade to mechanization. "It was burnt into my heart that my father had to beg for work," said Carnegie. "And then and there came the resolve that I would cure that when I got to be a man." Nearly penniless, the family was forced to emigrate to the United States. We sailed from Broomielaw of Glasgow in the 800-ton sailing ship Wiscasset. Leaving poverty for an uncertain future, the Carnegie family settled in Allegheny, Pennsylvania, and young Andrew went to work at the age of 12 as a bobbin boy in a cotton factory. It was dangerous work, but young Carnegie was not deterred by hard labor. He attended night school and quickly taught himself to read, thanks to a James Anderson, a local man who opened his personal library to working boys. Books would continue to form the bedrock of Carnegie's education for the rest of his life. Even at an early age, Carnegie took every opportunity he could to earn money or to educate himself. Though his labor was often long and difficult, Carnegie accepted that work could teach him lessons for his future just as surely as a book. He was ready to accept any lesson, however hard, that led him away from his father's fate. It was this mindset that prepared Carnegie for achievement better than any noble birth or elite education, and it would soon pay dividends. I congratulate poor young men upon being born to that ancient and honorable degree, which renders it necessary that they should devote themselves to hard work. Young Carnegie's diligence paid off. At the age of 14, he was hired as a telegraph boy, a job which took him out of the cotton mill. Carnegie's work ethic and reliability stood out, and at age 18, Thomas Scott, superintendent of the Pennsylvania Railroad Company, hired him as his private secretary. Carnegie was now firmly in the world of business. Determined to take advantage of every opportunity, Carnegie accepted more and more responsibilities, eventually succeeding Scott at the railroad. This position also gave Carnegie insight into investment opportunities. His first major investment was in railroad sleeping cars, an innovative idea in 1856. In 1861, he invested in Pennsylvania Oil and eventually held parts of firms such as Superior Rail Mill and Blast Furnaces, the Union Iron Mills, and the Pittsburgh Locomotive Works. This marked a big change for Carnegie. No longer did his labor earn every penny. It was his investments that would do it for him. By the age of 30, he had amassed a personal wealth of $50,000, equivalent to over $800,000 today. The growth of his wealth was even more important because with the passing of his father, the bachelor Carnegie was no longer responsible for just himself but the whole family. He bought his mother a large house and began to expand his business interest further. Yet the seeds of Carnegie's future philanthropy were there. In 1868, he wrote a letter avowing that he would give up business interest and dedicate himself to benevolence. No idol is more debasing than the worship of money. Whatever I engage in, I must push inordinately. Therefore, should I be careful to choose that life which will be the most elevating in its character. Still, Carnegie applied himself to his business concerns. During frequent visits to Great Britain, Carnegie became fascinated with the steel industry. Seeing a future for steel in virtually every aspect of industrial production, he borrowed the Bessemer steel-making process from Britain, and in 1873 set up his own steel mill, the J. Edgar Thompson Steel Works, named for his best customer. Thanks to the efficient Bessemer process, Carnegie steel was much cheaper and became the preferred material for railroad rails. In 1883, he purchased his main rival, the Homestead Steel Works. Carnegie also worked to vertically integrate raw material acquisition into his business, and soon had control over his entire steelmaking process. When he formed Carnegie Steel in 1892, U.S. steel production had surpassed Great Britain's, due in large part to Carnegie's relentless drive that combined a powerful sense of focus without losing sight of the larger picture. Concentrate your energies, your thoughts, and your capital. The wise man puts all his eggs in one basket and watches the basket. Carnegie's ascent was not without its problems. One of his greatest challenges lay in his chairman, Henry Clay Frick. Although, like Carnegie, a shrewd businessman, Frick was in many ways Carnegie's opposite. Foremost, he lacked Carnegie's sense of ethics. Frick had been culpable in the neglect of a private dam that burst and caused the 1889 Johnstown flood, which killed over 2,200 people and caused a public uproar. However, along with his cronies who had built the dam, Frick avoided liability. The problems continued in 1892, when union members at Homestead Steel went on strike, barricading themselves inside the factory. An ardent union buster, Frick sent a private army of 300 armed Pinkerton agents to put down the strike. A riot ensued, and after the death of 10 men, the agents were thrown back. Frick received much criticism for his heavy-handed methods. Throughout the 1880s, Carnegie had relied upon Frick to build his empire. But by this point, Frick's behavior forced Carnegie to try to sideline the chairman, especially when it came to finances. The rift between the men was clear. Carnegie was his own man, a titan of industry, but not a robber baron bent on profit for profit's sake. He had different plans for his single-minded pursuit of wealth. The Homestead strike coincided with the pinnacle of Carnegie's career, the formation of Carnegie Steel. Just 9 years later, he would sell the corporation to J.P. Morgan for a staggering $480 million, equivalent to $12.1 billion today. Though retired from business, Carnegie did not recede into a life of luxury and ease. While he may not have given up on business as early as had promised 30 years before, Carnegie still followed through on his commitment to give away his wealth. His ideas had matured over time, and his 1889 book, The Gospel of Wealth, expressed his well-developed views. Although it was the individual virtues of hard work and determination that led to financial success, Carnegie wrote it was the responsibility of those who reaped enormous fortunes not to squander them. Indeed, Carnegie believed the rich should return the vast bulk of their wealth to the people to continue improving their lives materially, just like the industrial system he had helped build. "The man who dies thus rich dies disgraced," he wrote. True to his word, Carnegie's philanthropic impact drew on his roots, the power of reading. Believing that anyone like he could better themselves with access to books, Carnegie funded over 2,500 libraries across the English-speaking world. In addition, he established several trusts and institutions in his name. These institutions were dedicated to improving education in Scotland and the United States, advancing science, and promoting world peace. It was from my own early experience that I decided there was no use to which money could be applied so productive as the founding of a public library. How much did Andrew Carnegie give away? In his lifetime, he gave nearly $350 million to philanthropy. That is equivalent to nearly $11 billion today. Even so, by the end of his life, Carnegie had still not managed to give away every penny. When Carnegie died in 1919 at the age of 83, he left $30 million to the Carnegie Corporation of New York. To this day, the Carnegie Corporation uses its endowment to develop education across the United States. Andrew Carnegie was a unique figure in his time and place. He stood apart from the industrialists of his day, largely because, while he pursued wealth as single-mindedly as they did, he saw an entirely different purpose for it. Carnegie drew from his own experience of deprivation to understand what his impact on the world could be. Throughout his life, he aligned his own success with the improvement of life for others. He gave away what he had strived so hard to acquire, an act which illuminates Carnegie's true legacy. Money is the goal, hard work is the means, but the purpose lies beyond yourself.